Well, Jason, I want to thank you for being here at Mikasa tonight. For the audience that don't know, this is Jason Holtgrewe. He's been one of my closest friends since high school, and
That's right.
I'm glad to have him back in the Southeast Iowa area. He's been back for a few years now, so I'll let you kind of give an introduction about yourself and introduce yourself to the folks.
Yeah, man. Grew up in Iowa. We were friends back in the glory days in high school. So went out to LA for a few years to go to seminary, and then somehow came back here to endure the rough winters. So been in the Quad Cities for almost 3 years.
Nice.
Pastoring. So
very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, again, it's good to have you here, Jason. I'm going to jump right into these topics here, and this won't take long, but I do want to hit some of these areas. And the first question I want to ask you is I would like for you, if you can, to define what it means to be a godly man. What is manhood to you?
Manhood to me, well, I think everybody has their own definition of maybe what that is. I think it's a very personal call. And for me, I'd say maybe becoming who I am. A sense of, like, we all have these expectations that other people have put on us, the pressures that we put on ourselves to maybe conform to this image, to be this kind of person, to achieve this kind of success. And the question I've had to answer in my life is, when is that going to stop? You know, and you put your identity in so many things, and it's like, you know, don't put your identity in something you can lose.
Sure. Yeah.
And I've placed my identity in so many things that I have lost, and then I was like, well, I got to try something new. And I feel like the only thing I can't lose without a shadow of a doubt is God.
Yeah.
And him being in my life, and my relationship with him. And so life isn't about, you know, chasing other people's expectations.
Sure.
It's about, you know, being the man, the person who God is calling you to be.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, some may say, you know, you don't have to be a Christian to be defined as a man. You know, as long as you care for your family, you're a good person, you're a good man, and you're responsible. That, you know, that's good enough. How do you respond to that?
Well, for me, my Christian faith, my spirituality, that gives definition to being a man of character and integrity. I mean, that's what, you know, Jesus Christ, I follow him, and so he gives me meaning, he gives me inspiration about what it means to be a man of character,
Sure.
a man of integrity. So it's hard for me to know any other way. I think if anybody's living with more character, more integrity, more commitment, more trust, those are good and godly things. I would say that if someone doesn't believe in God and yet they're still living out these values, that's a good thing, and God is in that. I would say that ultimately, you know, even if they don't see it, I would say God is behind that. I believe
Sure.
God is in all truth,
Right.
whether we recognize it or not.
Sure. Now, the next question is kind of one that is close to my heart in the sense that I see it so prevalent, and that's the condition of our society. It seems to be, both on a national scale and even globally, the morality issue is experiencing a hefty decline, and it has for some time now. How do you think that we as believers combat immorality in our society?
Well, I'm not a pessimist. I'm not saying you are. I believe it's easy for people of faith maybe to say, well, you know, the world's over, it's getting worse, we're going to burn up. I feel like God, it's a very escapist view of you know, what God is doing and how he's working in our lives. I believe God has not abandoned the world, that there is hope, that he has a mission for us and for his creation, and he's redeeming it, restoring it even now. And so I think there's a lot of hope. And so I you know, the only problem with combating immorality is saying that I'm on this side, other people are on that side, and we have to fight against them. And I don't feel like God is choosing sides. I
Yeah.
believe God is Lord of all, and He's working in ways that I think break out of the box or the boundaries that we tend to set for Him. And so I believe He is a God of justice and love and mercy and grace. And so when we're doing those things, we are doing His work.
Sure.
But sometimes that looks maybe different than the traditional ways
Sure.
maybe that
Sure.
we've come to see it. So
And I think, just kind of going off of that, we sometimes have gotten so used to, judging people and
Right.
not accepting them where they're at, and to reach people, we need to meet them where they're at because
Right.
Jesus did.
yeah,
And so, you make some excellent points there. I guess the next question I have is in regards to your more traditional churches and some churches that may view or frown upon this type of outreach to the fighting community. Now, you and I both know that mixed martial arts is a truly competitive sport, but how do you think that it's best to address this barrier or this issue, and then gain support from the church, traditional or not?
Yeah, as someone who, I love sports. I love healthy competition. I'm personally not a fighter, but I think the in response to that is, why don't you ask the fighters?
Yeah.
How has training and fighting helped them become better people? And start with that. Get to know them, get to know their stories, and listen to see how the discipline that they train with and the, struggling in the cage and overcoming. That's where I would start, at least. If there's churches out there who are struggling to reconcile these two things, to talk to the fighters and see what kind of difference it's made in their life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes back to the issue of not judging people, accepting them where they're at, talking to them, getting to know their story, and finding out what makes them tick. What causes them to respond or act either right or wrong in the way that they do. And so absolutely. Now, tell me a little bit about what you're up to. You're an associate pastor up in the Quad Cities. How is the outreach up there going? Do you feel like there's enough work from a ministry aspect that's going on in our cities and our communities, or do you see areas that need more ministry than others?
Yeah, that's a good question. When I moved back to the Quad Cities, it definitely becoming familiar with the city. I didn't grow up in that area, and so with the economy as it was, we there's so many people that were struggling just with the basic needs, food, and so the last couple of years I've had an opportunity to really help with people just have food, put food on their plates, and so that's been very meaningful for me, and I've really spent some time just personally doing one-on-one mentoring with kids who don't have dads in their life through Big Brothers Big Sisters, and so trying to get my church community involved in that, and so it's been a really good experience. I can't replace his dad. Only his dad can be his dad, but it's been fun to have lunch with my third grader and just help him, just affirm him and know that he's valued no matter what. So
awesome.
That's been a good experience.
Very cool, Jason. Well, again, it's good to have you this evening. We look forward to doing some more work with you in the future and hearing about what God's doing in your life. So you're more than welcome to come on anytime and to share your story, your testimony. But we definitely appreciate you coming out, and I appreciate it. And again, we look forward to hearing from you in the future. I appreciate it.
Cool. Thanks, man.